We tend to think of technology as just, well, a bunch of tools. But what if we looked at it in a totally different way? In this explainer, we're going to explore code not as just a craft, but as a discipline, almost like a martial art, with its own philosophy, its own techniques, and a really profound code of ethics. So let's just start right there with that central question. What if every single line of code wasn't just a command, but a practiced, deliberate movement? What if debugging wasn't some tedious chore, but actually a form of sparring? Just that one little shift in perspective, it changes everything about how we see the digital world. So on one side, you've got the traditional mindset of a coder. They're focused on logic, on building these rigid structures, and really just solving problems as they come up. But on the other side, you've got the cyber samurai. They value flow, adapting to situations, and most importantly, anticipating the opponent's next move. It's really the difference between being a builder and being a guardian. And that brings us to the arena itself, the digital battlefield. Now, unlike a physical battlefield, the conflicts here are often completely silent, totally invisible. The attacks don't make a sound, and the defenses are just lines of logic. In a space like this, your intention, that becomes your most powerful weapon. Now, here's what's so interesting about this battlefield. Your opponent isn't really another person you can see face to face. You're actually fighting a force. It could be a tidal wave of malicious data, a tiny, subtle weakness in the armor of your system, or an unexpected breach that just appears out of nowhere, like a crack in reality itself. So how do you even train for something like that? Well, you do it through what we can call the kata of code. In martial arts, a kata is this series of choreographed movements that you practice until it's perfect. In coding, it's about bringing that same level of discipline and intention into the very act of creating something. And this kata is built on 4 core postures. First up, intention. You have to know why you're writing this code in the first place. Second, precision, treating every single line like it's a deliberate, focused strike. Third is harmony, making sure that what you create isn't just functional, but it's also in balance with its environment, which is what makes it secure. And finally, reflection, taking a step back to really think about the long-term consequences of your work. This quote just illustrates the goal perfectly. A master coder, just like a master swordsman, gets that what you don't include, the simplicity, the empty space, the void, is every bit as important as the code you actually write, the fullness. True mastery, true elegance, is about achieving the absolute most with the absolute least. Okay, so how does this philosophy of creation actually apply to defense? Well, if you look at martial arts like judo or aikido, the whole point isn't to meet force with more force, it's to redirect it. And that exact same principle applies to elite cyber defense. Let's take a really common attack, a DDoS attack, which stands for Distributed Denial of Service. Now, technically, it's a massive flood of junk traffic from all over the world trying to knock a service offline. But let's think of it like a medieval army laying siege to a fortress, just hammering and hammering away at the gates, your servers, until those walls finally crumble. Now, the brute force response is just to build higher, thicker walls. But the martial artist's response, that's totally different. Instead of trying to block an overwhelming torrent, you divert it. You step aside. In the tech world, this could mean using things like rate limiting to slow that flood down to a trickle, or maybe redirecting all that traffic to a decoy, a honeypot. It's an elegant way of using the attacker's own massive energy against them. You make their greatest strength their ultimate weakness. We can call this whole concept mental judo. It's a strategic mindset where you're not just reacting anymore. You're observing the flow of the attack, and you're using its own momentum to guide it toward its own defeat. This is defense through intelligence, not just through raw power. And this resilience, it isn't just technical, it's psychological. It actually mirrors the ancient philosophy of Stoicism, focusing only on what you can control. Look, you can't stop every attack from being launched. That's totally outside your control. But you can control your response. By keeping a calm, virtuous approach, you build a system that isn't just strong, but truly, deeply unshakable. All right, so let's zoom out a bit. Let's go from a single fight to the health of the entire battlefield. I mean, if you think about it, the most resilient systems in the world, they aren't man-made at all. They're found in nature. A typical corporate network is often centralized. It's like a castle. If the main gate falls, the whole system is compromised. It has a single point of failure. But now, look at a mycelial network, the vast underground root system of fungi. It's completely decentralized with countless redundant paths. If you cut one connection, the network just reroutes. It's resilient by its very nature. So here's the key takeaway. A computer virus spreads a lot like a fungal spore, right? It's just looking for a vulnerable host. Now, a rigid, centralized network is like a monoculture crop, super easy to wipe out. But a decentralized, mycelial-like network, it acts like a healthy ecosystem. It can isolate the threat, contain it, and neutralize it long before it ever spreads. And all of this brings us to our final and maybe our most important reflection. Because with this level of skill, with this kind of understanding, comes a profound responsibility. It's what you might call the guardian's burden. So we have to ask ourselves, is the coder fundamentally a creator or a warrior? I mean, the exact same skills that you use to build a beautiful, harmonious system, they can be used to forge a devastating weapon. The only thing that separates the two is a matter of intent. And this forces an even bigger question on us. What is the ultimate purpose of all our digital tools? Are we just building taller walls and sharper swords in some kind of endless digital arms race? Or are we trying to create a more balanced, a more resilient ecosystem for everyone? Which, of course, leaves us right here. As our tools become more autonomous, as threats become more and more invisible, the old ways of thinking just aren't enough anymore. So the crucial question we all have to think about is this. Who is the guardian of the balance? Is it the coder? Is it the user? Or is it a shared responsibility that we are all only just beginning to truly understand?